I want to take a look now at the AI menu. I've set up a situation here to show you how some of the AI works, some of the drawbacks and some of the benefits to it. We have an enemy Corellian base up in this corner here, grid alpha 4. I have an allied base, just a deep space base that I've spawned in grid Charlie 4. I have a Gaspo class, which is a mining ship. I've spawned that inside this asteroid field and I've asked it to hold position there, so it's not going to move away. And then I have the player ship, the TSN Saber here. This hopefully should show you the kind of range of actions that I can ask an enemy fleet to do, and I could also ask an allied ship to do as well. So if we go back to the Game Master console here, first of all I need to spawn an enemy fleet. So I'm going to go into my ship menu, it's on side value 1, I'm going to go into hegemony, and I'm just going to use a light Corellian fleet for this. Should be more than enough. So I have fleet here, the designation is K, so I know when I'm using my AI function I need to look for the letter K to be able to control that fleet. Navigating to my AI menu is easier, I just click this AI here. You can immediately see I have a couple of drop down menus at the top. I have this indicator here and this indicator here. So this one here says target GM target. That means currently the AI will be sent to the ship that I've got selected as Game Master. So if I selected this ship and then gave it some AI instructions, they would just be set to that ship. I want to change it so it's the whole group that I'm sending messages to initially. So I use this drop down menu called Reassign AI. You can see it's got letters A all the way to Z and GM target at the top. This is group K, so I'm going to select group K, and then to show that that's changed, it now says target group K. If I wanted to change the side of that group, I could set side just by clicking and changing, and the whole group will change side. If I wanted to delete that group, I'd just click delete and it will get rid of that group as well. Next up, I want to start controlling this group. Before it does anything, I want it to move to this base. Let's say it's part of my story. So I can use this directional control. You can see it's got 8 different directions. It's also got stop on it as well. These are speed controls. You can't quite see speed. I'll try and edit these buttons so that you can. So that I can slow it down by 0.6 or I can speed it up by 0.6. I can also move that whole group to the GM. So if I click move group to GM, it will move each ship in that group. Every time I assign a command to this group, you'll notice that the target group K changes and a button pops up over it saying reassigning AI. That means the instructions are being sent to all those ships. It can take a few seconds for all the ships, particularly in big fleets, to have the AI assigned to them. So as GM you need to be mindful of that. You can't just quickly switch them to do something new. It can take between a few seconds to a few minutes for the ships actually to start following the AI that's been assigned to them new. So if you're switching backwards and forwards really quickly, it can cause you problems in that the ships won't do what you want them to do necessarily. You've got to kind of plan ahead with it. There's a little bit of thought involved, but once you get fluent with it, you can come up with some really interesting situations and strategies and have the enemies actually playing out some quite intricate battles to keep the players on their toes. Okay, like I say, I wanted to move the group across to this hotel. So I have group K selected and I'm just going to ask them to move to 270. When I click that, if you have a look up here, you'll see that it changes to reassigning AI. So here you go, reassigning AI. And as it's reassigning, you'll see each ship will move. There's like a ripple effect that goes through the enemy fleet here to move them. Let's make the move a bit more dramatic. I'm going to have them come back a little bit. So if I shift them to 45 degrees, here we go. See how each one's assigned and then they all turn. So it's really useful for getting enemy fleets into a position. The drawback with this is they're not necessarily going to attack. It means that you can move past players and not be worried about the players hitting them once and dragging them off where you don't want them to be. Obviously the drawback is you need to actually tell them to attack. Otherwise the players can just pick them apart if you forget that they're there. Alright, so these enemy ships are moving a little bit slow. I'm going to speed them up by clicking this once. Again, it will say reassigning AI, and the ships will move a little bit quicker. They'll move at plus 0.6 speed. Alright, and I want them to hold position by this base here. So as soon as I want them to hold position, if they're in the right place, I'm going to click stop, and again you get that effect, and they'll all stop. If I now click a new direction, they will turn to that new direction, but they'll remain stationary. I need to change their speed again to get them moving. They'll also sit there, and if a player ship comes along, they won't do anything to them because they don't have the attack AI assigned to them. So you need to be mindful of that. It's nice to set up these situations where, say, an enemy force has come along and it's stopped next to a base. Alright, I want to get them moving again. And there's a couple of objectives that I could have for my enemy. I could have them either attack the player, I could have them attack the neutral that I've set up down here, or I could have them attack the base. So I'm going to go through each one so you can see the kind of time it takes to be able to assign and then change the AI and watch them change their course. And you should see, as we cycle through each one, as they move, they start to change direction and start to track new targets. First off, I need to get them moving again. So let's get them moving. Here we go. Okay, and they're going to keep moving in this direction until I give them an order. Now, this is where this AI type menu comes into. I've sorted it into 3 types. Enemy type is like all the attack orders and orders for vessels that you want to be in an offensive role against the player usually. The ally is when you've got a combat ship like a destroyer or an escort and you want to give orders to that ally but also be able to allow the players to interact with the ally. You could give them the enemy orders, those would apply as well to an allied ship, to one of the neutrals, to the players, but they wouldn't respond to orders. And then there's neutral, which is just a very basic menu for any non-combat ships like this one. So this one, being a gas boat class, doesn't have any weapons really, it's got a mining laser, so it's not going to do much. So with my group K, I'm going to click on AI enemy. Alright, you can see this is it tells you the AI type that's selected, so I've selected the enemy AI type, and then there's a few different options. There's surrender and unsurrender. A few comms officers I've met have been incredibly efficient at getting a whole fleet to surrender when I want them to actually do something, so I can click unsurrender and it will just unsurrender that whole fleet, which is really nice and easy, or the individual target if it's a GM target. Default will reset the enemy back to the default AI stack. So if I click that, it says reassigning AI. These enemies get given that default AI stack. They take a little bit of time to decide what to do with that default AI stack. So you can see they've turned away there. Now if a player comes along, they will attack that player, which is good. So if you want them to quickly turn and attack a player that's close by, they'll do that. Or a player that's attacking them, they'll quickly do that. But after a few minutes, their pathing that sets in the AI menu will start up, and then they'll start to track one of these targets. If I go over to my server screen, it's just on the bottom right, and switch through, let's see, is it F7? Here we go. So you'll be able to see the AI in this corner. So if I click on that now, you can see we've got K16 brain stack process. It's trying to become the leader, chasing player. It's now targeting and chasing the TSN Saber and following its assigned path. So these enemies now will start trying to target the TSN Saber and will change their direction based on where the Saber is, and they'll track it and move to try and attack it. Alright. I want them to actually focus on this base. So I have some different options. I can click on Elite, that's the default AI stack for like a Scaran. I can click on Hunt Player, where they'll focus all their efforts on the player. They'll ignore any neutrals that are close by, they'll ignore any bases that are close by, they'll just go for the player. There's Hunt Base, where they'll ignore the players and they'll ignore the neutrals unless they're far too close and attacking them, and they'll just go for the bases. And then there's Hunt Neutral, where they'll ignore the players and the bases and they'll just go for the neutrals. Again, when I say ignore, if a player comes close, then what they'll do is they'll end up moving to attack that player, so players will be able to draw them away from the bases like you can normally do. You can see these enemies now have really turned and they're tracking the TSN Saber. So I'm going to get them to hunt the base. So if I click Hunt Base, and on the bottom right on the server screen you'll see the brain stack process changing for Kilo 50 that I have selected. So click Hunt Base, it's reassigning AI, and the brain stack changed, so it's now targeting and chasing Golf 89, which is the allied base. And if we zoom in, after a few minutes, when they've decided which way they're going to go, they'll move to start attacking that base. So this is where, as a GM, you've got to be pre-planning, thinking ahead of what you want your enemy groups to do, and try not to change their orders too frequently. If you start changing their orders too frequently, then they can't really keep up, because you've got that time to reassign, and then you've got that time for them to actually process what's going on and to be able to change course to be able to do it, and think about where they're going. While they're doing that, we can look at the ally menu and neutral menu. Oh, there they go. So you can see now they've changed course. So like I say, it takes a few seconds up to a couple of minutes. So you do have to be mindful of that. They're now tracking that base, and you can see they're on course. And if I go here, they're on a course for Golf 89. Let's have them hunt the neutral, so I can click Hunt Neutral. The AI stack will change again, and they'll start to move to engage Juliet 96 here in Grid Charlie 2. Right, I'm going to focus on the neutral ship, and this time I'm not going to use the group one because it's a single ship. I'm just going to use the GM select. So I need to go to reassign AI and GM target, and now I've got target is GM target. Now when I click on that, the AI that I assign will be assigned just to this single ship. Alright, so the neutral, I made it hold position for the moment. I don't have to worry about this menu because I'm not clicking anything on there, but I want to start moving the neutral up towards the TSN Saber, where there's a bit more protection. So I'm going to move it direction 315, so you can see it's turning, but I also need to change its speed to accelerate it. It's nice, the enemies have just turned to engage as well. So that neutral is now moving towards the TSN Saber. It will have to get outside this asteroid field, it'll have to fly through, it'll probably bump into a couple. I could really fine tune where I want it to go, so I could get it to go this direction maybe by using this menu. So you can see I can actually navigate it a little bit more finely. This navigation is really nice because it quickly changes and it follows the direction that I'm telling it to go. Here we go. So I can have it do it quite an intricate path, and I've actually the command ships, I've actually taken control of them and have them do evasive maneuvers and things against individual players, which has frustrated and annoyed them, and has been an absolute delight for me as GM. Alright, so that's safely outside of that asteroid field. I'm going to accelerate it a little bit more as well. Alright, now at the moment this neutral is not going to respond to any comms orders, so if I go to other ship, Juliet 86, and I tell it to adjust course to heading 0, they're not going to accept orders. Alright, that's because of the way that it's spawned and the AI commands that it's given. If I actually select it on the Science console, you can see on the server screen that it's just got a direction, and it's got chase station, chase AI, and chase player, and it's fairly close ranges, so it's not going to go off and do anything that unexpected. I do want it to respond to comms orders, and I want it to go to a default AI stack. So in the neutral menu here, you can see I can cycle through ally menu, enemy menu. In the neutral menu, neutral selected, I can switch this here back and forwards, comms on and comms off. If I have comms on, anything that I assign to this neutral will mean it will also get the AI command for receiving comms, and then the players can direct it. If comms are off, it will have the same AI stack without follow comms orders, so the players can't direct it. That just means that I can have it function without being interfered by players, or I can have it function and have the players really think about what they're doing with that. So I'm going to do comms on to give TSN Saber the ability to control it, and I'm just going to click neutral default. That will assign to this target the default AI stack. If it works. Okay. Alright, it took a moment just to sort itself out there. Alright, so that's now got a default AI stack. It also has, if you look on the server screen, follow comms orders on there. So when I go to other ship and I'm a player and I want to tell it to turn to a particular heading, it will now accept those comms orders here. I want it to come to Golf 89. There we go. Alright. The ally one is more for ships that have some actual combat capability, because they have like a default stack. They will hunt enemy bases, they will hunt enemy groups. There's also the guard base. It's not quite functioning properly. You can give it a try. I think the last time I tried it, it just crashed the server, so just be wary of the guard base. I am trying to fix that up at the moment. I think that is everything. Let's go through, see if we can delete group K. So if I select that, oops, and then go to delete group. Nope. Alright, okay, so that's a function that I just need to finish off. Anyway, that's the overview of the AI menu. I'll look at some of the other menus later on as well.